Hey guys, Lord Sora here. Season 4 is here with full speed, and I'm also grinding and figuring out all the new cool things the Season 4 brought to us. Since for the first time PvE has an endgame, I have decided to initially focus on PvE this season before moving into PvP, and been working on endgame Shadow Minion Necro build to farm Uber bosses as well as pushing pit tiers. Here in the background, you're watching me clear tier 79, and my golem is already hitting within the range of 200 to 400 million, which I have to say my gear has been very bad. I had only like 10% attack speed or something, which is very low, and I have only masterworked my sight to get some damage boost. Outside of that, I have been just saving my mats to spend on actual good gear, but before then I wanted to test the waters and see how high this build can go, which I think it's very promising to get to this high tier without any masterworking and items with bad stats on them. So I start to feel very confident, and I thought it is a good time to share this build with you guys before the weekend if you're trying to enjoy some endgame content and explore shadow minions. You can follow this guide to see how it feels for you. I have been honestly really enjoying being the meta class for once. All my friends are inviting me and asking me to go to kill the Uber bosses for them, and it's been quite nice. In the previous theory crafting video, there were a lot of things based on my hypotheses since I did not test the minions excessively during PTR. So there were a lot of things that I was unsure about. However, as I start playing and testing, things started becoming a lot clearer for me. There are still few things I am not sure about that I plan to figure out in the coming weeks. I have been really trying to read every other minion guide out there, inform myself, and there are so many good guide videos out there. If you think I'm missing anything or you think you have a better idea, please comment below. I'm sure there's still a lot of room for improvement as minions receive tons of changes, and there are still quite a lot of things to learn and test. Alrighty, let's jump into the build planner. The link also to this planner will be linked in description below. If you want to skip the video and get right to it, you can also click the link and follow the guide as well. Here we're starting with the helmet option. I am putting here our occult dominion to get extra warriors and mages increased by 2. As our stats, I'm really liking max life, cooldown reduction, and intelligence here. And then as tempering options, we're going corpse centrals and maximum life. You will see in this build guide that I am trying to really prioritize maximum life. I have currently in the game, I have about 30k or so life, but once I find the gear affixes and the gear that I really desire in the game, I will be able to get to the 50k max life, which is, I think it's going to be very important, because so far one thing I'm struggling in the pits existing, running from it, especially from 70 to 80, surviving is getting quite difficult. There are a lot of one-shot mechanics, but once I start putting more life on my build, I start surviving a lot better, and I was actually survive some of the one-shots with 30k HP. So I believe if I get to 50k HP, which you should be able to if you follow this build planner, you can kind of see on the right side here that I am able to get to 43k life here. And if you follow the build planner, you should be able to get there as well. And then you can also use a fortitude elixir to get more max life. But yeah, so with running Army of the Dead here, surviving is a bit more difficult compared to running Bone Storm. So I'm trying to really go high life on this build, where I can push higher tiers more easily. On the chest piece, we are running our really important damage reduction aspect, Hardened Bones. The R affixes have been removed from the game, as you guys might know already. So this aspect is very important, giving us a much needed damage reduction for us and for our minions. As our stats, I'm running armor, max life, and golem mastery. This is absolutely must have. We can only have it on the chest, so very important. And if you can find a greater affix, that is the goal. In this planner, I tried to put 1 greater affix per gear, being more reasonable, you may not be able to find maybe 2 or 3 greater affixes, but let's say you can only find one, and I put the most priority one, in my opinion, in the helmet. I put cooldown reduction as the greater affix you may want to desire, and on the chest I put that onto Golem Mastery because it gives us even more of a damage multiplier. And you really want to masterwork this one and hit the Golem Mastery 3 times if you can. That will be really important for our build. Disclaimer, in the video gameplay example you have seen in the beginning, I had none of these, so I think I only had +2 Golem Mastery, and I didn't even masterwork my chest. So tier 70, 79, tier 80 without any masterworking and min-max gear is possible. So hopefully you get to do this as well if you follow the build planner. Going to our glows, we are running attack speed, almost must have. I will talk about the breakpoints in the next section, but attack speed, really important to have the greater affix here. Critical chance and maximum life. Again, I'm trying to get maximum life in everywhere I can find, because running Army of the Dead and going really high damage with the Paragon, it makes us quite squishy. Also not having enough DR, running max life is gonna be our very important option. I didn't touch on the tempering options here. I like the decrypify size and total armor. On this one, corpse tendril size and maximum life. I like this total armor here, so it gets us really nicely to the armor cap by having 2 armor affixes on the gear. We'll have 1 on the pants as well, and then that will get us armor cap, and we do not have to put any points into armor from our skill tree. With that being said, we touched on the glows. We're running curse duration here because we're probably we are capping the decrypify size. So, as an option, every offensive option, we are going to be running golems damage. We're gonna get to this to maybe 2000% once we reach all of our gear goals. On the legs, we run decrypify size, maximum life as an aspect. We are running skeletal warriors attack shadow damage. We are going to be activating our skeletal priests very oftenly to get resources back and to buff our minions. And once we do that, our skeletal warriors will also be dealing shadow damage. I really find this really important. It helped me significantly to keep my uptime of shadow blight, which is where our big damage is coming from. So I was able to have shadow blight uptime 80-90% of the time with this, so it really helped me. And this is without me having a really good attack speed. So my gear didn't, I think I had 10% attack speed in the gameplay example. On glows, we are running blood gathers. This actually gives us a 1.21 multiplier because the skeletal priest is going to buff our minions damage 30%. And this will give us the 70% of this effectiveness, which in return it will buff our golem damage even more. So this is actually a really high uptime, almost 100% uptime multiplier that I think it's very important to have. This also heals us. So in the pit, sometimes every 8 seconds, this also gives us a healing because how the skeletal priest works. So I really enjoyed running this one just for the damage and some survivability. On the boots, we are running Metamorphosis. I am so used to running this aspect in PvP, so I'm really trying to run this again in PvE. We do not have mist on the bar, as you can see, so this will be our unstoppable uptime. We are going to be reducing our evade cooldown, and we'll be able to stay up unstoppable almost at all times, which I think it's going to be very important in the pit pushing, where you can easily move around the area and get situate yourself and command your minion army. So I think it's going to be very important. As our weapon option, we're going to be running two-hander sight. It's significantly more damage than greatsword. It's instead of having a crit damage, we are having more based damage from the sight itself because it's higher than the greatsword, which equals about 10% damage increase compared to greatsword. So this is going to be our choice of weapon here. We're going to be running maximum life, intelligence, damage. Golem's damage is our tempering option, and minion attack speed here as well. and our aspect option is 240% Shadow Blight. We're putting this on a two-hander to get these huge multipliers. As our blighted proc is up a lot more often with how the build is set up, so we are going to be getting a huge damage multiplier from here. You will see a lot of these golem big damages actually will happen when the blighted procs, so this is very valuable to put it on a two-hander, as based on my experience that I was able to test. On the amulet, we are running our reanimation aspect to get 60% damage multiplier. It's up all the time almost, because they're always alive after 10 seconds. As our option, cooldown reduction is very, very important. We have maximum life here, critical chance. As our tempering options, we put maximum life and ultimate cooldown reduction. Few things to discuss here. Hellbent Commander passive is very, very valuable. However, so far I'm finding myself a little bit hard to survive, so I stay distant from the mobs a lot, or elites or boss. So I do not think I am actually activating the Hellbent Commander passive as much as I like, so I didn't include it here. But this is something to test. Currently, as you guys know, my gear was very, very bad, so I was not able to survive or be up in the face of the boss. So maybe once I finally finish this build and I reach about 40k HP or 41k, 50k HP, let's say, depending of how the stats change at the time. But as it is right now, we have 45k max life. Maybe I will replace maximum life affix here with the Hellbent Commander affix, so that we get more damage. It's gonna be all depending on if I'm able to survive or not. I really want to stick to Army of the Dead. I think it is a highly bursty, more bursty playstyle, and it is highly more effective when it comes to killing bosses. I have tried Bone Storm myself as well to see if I can get a little bit more tankiness with the barrier. However, I have felt the damage lost when it comes to the boss. Overall DPS felt a little higher when I was actually farming, speed farming the mobs to get to the boss in the pits. However, once I got to the boss, it was actually significantly reduced the damage. So there is something to test there, but for now I really want to stick to Army of the Dead, just because I can go there, pop it, and then I have this huge damage going out immediately. And then because of that reason, I'm actually putting ultimate cooldown reduction here, which I know a lot of people will be putting a golem cooldown reduction. However, one thing I found is that Army of the Dead has a really high lucky hit chance. So as we can proc more Army of the Dead, and if to keep the Army of the Dead uptime with the ultimate cooldown reduction, we are able to actually generate a lot more CDR, cooldown reduction, even to our golem, just because we're proccing Decrypify a lot more. So that I found that I end up being able to spam golem even more if I have the Army of the Dead active. So that for that reason, I am putting ultimate cooldown reduction to reduce to Army of the Dead cooldown to 10 seconds or so, and that will get even lower with lucky hit procs and 7 seconds uptime. So I want to reduce that uptime. I want to reduce that downtime as much as possible. So that's my idea behind here. That's why I'm putting cooldown reduction to ultimate, and that's why I'm adding maximum life, because not running Bone Storm, not having any barrier, I want to go really high life where I can survive better while taking the benefit of Army of the Dead damage multiplier, which is our next aspect here. Actually, Army of the Dead increases our 100% damage multiplier. This is actually, I think, huge. And I like Army of the Dead as an ultimate more, and it really did significantly was noticeable when it comes to boss farming compared to Bone Storm and Army of the Dead. So if I can find a way to survive the Army of the Dead by stacking more life, I think I'm gonna stick to this setup. And if I find the survivability feeling quite comfortable, I will probably put Hellbent Commander on the amulet. Here we are seeing again another ultimate cooldown reduction, an Army of the Unyielding Commander aspect. It says 100% plus, but it's a visual bug or visual mistake. I'm not sure, but it is actually working as a multiplier, so that's something to note. Again, we are putting critical critical chance and attack speed and maximum life here, following the same pattern that we've been doing. And we have ultimate cooldown reduction and golem's damage as well. We are going to be rocking the exact same stats on the other ring as well. And we are going to be putting our attack speed frenzied dead here to give us even more minion attack speed, which in return it equals to more damage multiplier from our Paragon. Let's talk about the sacrifices here. Reapers. Initially, I was running the cooldown reduction. However, every 10 seconds wasn't feeling that great. And then I actually swapped to Reapers forming corpses. It felt so much better. Then I realized it's actually bugged and it's working for both ways. It's proccing the cooldown reduction, I think, and as well as proccing corpses as well. Something to monitor here, but it felt significantly better. I'm not sure it's because of the bug or it's better, but overall you want to run the corpse generation so you can push your minions, generate a bunch of corpses immediately, even if your army of the dead is downtime, and then you can proc, corpse tendrils to pull the mobs together, so on and so forth. So I think it works really well. For our shadow mages, I'm running the first option, 3% multiplier. This also works for our minions and for our golem as well. I think it's a very, very good option. Here we are running the blood golem. I was trying all the golems types, bone and iron, trying to see which one works better. And a lot of build guides were stating the blood golem, and obviously it was the true winner. I ended up coming back to the blood golem because it has a huge damage multiplier. But not only that, when you actually hover over it, the last part says damage and healing received are tripled if only one enemy is drained. So when you see a boss, that 252 damage multiplier becomes almost 700. It's tripled when you're just fighting a one target, it makes this blood golem very, very important when it comes to killing bosses. Let's talk about the skill tree real quick. This video is already getting very long, but trying to provide as much as I have found out to share with you guys, so this is helpful. This basic ability we just puts point there so we can get to the next place. We are putting blight here so we can actually start the fight immediately, put shadow damage on them, start getting our blight procs, and we are also getting a 20% damage multiplier here if they are within the blight, which can be, if you play really well, proc a corpse, pull them and then blight them, and they will all be gathered together. It makes a quite fun play style. And then we're putting obviously healed flesh to proc more corpses there. We get to the next place. Surprising, we do not have any mist here. We are taking skeletal warrior mastery to make them more survivable, to do some more damage, which their damage is insignificant. We are taking grim harvest here. We do not have any essence generation other than this in our build. So if you're casting blight a lot, which you shouldn't be casting back to back a lot, so that you just want to cast blight to be proccing shadow blight, as well as just getting the scourge or other multipliers that you benefit from shadow damage. But sometimes you will be running really low on essence, so I'm putting 3 points here. You need to be activating your raised skeleton to consume corpses. As you activate raised skeletons, you will be generating essence, which I think it helps. It becomes very effective. It makes it a really fun play style to generate essence while using raised skeleton, which raised skeleton will buff your minions, will heal you, and will also give you a damage bonus. Here we're actually taking field by dead, 3 points here, will boost our attack power. We're taking all these passives, movement speed, damage reduction, damage increase curse. We're taking decrepify as always. Skeletal mage mastery here, 3. People like to run skeletal mage mastery on their gear, pants, so on and so forth. However, I think their damage is just okay. Most of our damage comes from golem anyways, as we get to these boss kills and higher pit tiers. So I'm just putting this. I think I don't want to invest any affix slots to mage mastery. I'm quite happy with the golem damage. Coming down here, we're putting as many points as we can in corpse tendrils. I want to activate this as much as possible. Lower cooldown is the better. we're taking the vulnerability, but this will also be our source of vulnerability. So it's quite important to be casting this as much as possible. Then we have our fortify. It's giving now 15% damage reduction. It's one of the few damage reduction that we can access to, so it's very highly valuable. Getting to the skill tree here, we're taking Reaper's Pursuit to be able to run faster. This might not be as valuable. I'm sometimes moving these points to somewhere else to test. However, so far I like moving faster in the pit, so I think it helps a little bit. We also put 1 point in the Crippling Darkness. Crippling Darkness is an interesting one. I was initially putting a lot of tempering options on my gear to increase this Crippling Darkness because it provides huge amount of stagger. However, when I do that, one problem is I need to be running more lucky hit chance on my gear pieces, and I really cannot sacrifice any other affixes here other than maximum life. So if I want to run Crippling Darkness stagger type of build, I need to be stacking a lot more lucky hit chance, and only affix that I can sacrifice on my gear is maximum life or maybe intelligence on helmet, but on my rings I will be sacrificing maximum life and putting lucky hit chance instead, which can be a good option. However, then I lose a lot of the maximum life I put on a temperic option, and like I mentioned, it is becoming quite harder to survive running Army of the Dead, but if I go lower life, it's gonna even become harder. And the fact that I don't have any lucky hit chance, I just put 1 point here to be able to help with Shadow Blight proc, as well as just to get just some amount of stagger from our Blight core ability. If I were to change my build to Bone Storm type of shadow minions, then I would actually stack a lot more lucky hit and put barrier on, and then play a more stagger type of minion build instead of more bursty. So far this is a lot more bursty play style, but if you with the Bone Storm, it's more DPS, more staggering options. So I would go to that route, I think, if I were to swap to Bone Storm. It's something to monitor as we push higher tiers in the pit to see how our survivability goes and how our damage evolves, to see where we are going to be landing. Going down here, Golem Mastery absolutely must have. We're putting 5 from our gear chest like I covered, and we're putting Army of the Dead. This last node here might not be that necessary because if they are not dying as much, we do not care about our ultimate to bringing them back if they stay alive most of the time. However, as I reach tier 80, I start seeing some of my minions dying, so I think it's gonna have more value as we climb higher tiers. I think this is gonna become more valuable and valuable. Here we're putting a critical chance here for our minions to have more crit chance, and then we have our Hellbent Commander here, which gives us 45% damage multiplier. Still debating if I should put more ranks here from our amulet, which I will keep you guys posted if I change this up and see how it feels as I push higher tiers in the pit. And our key passive Shadow Blight, like I mentioned before. Our first board here, we are taking Scourge. We are going to be getting a 10% multiplier here, active as almost all the time as we cast our Blight core ability. We start the fights with Blight, we get our 10% damage multiplier, nice and easy. So that's my first glyph option here. On the left, we are taking resistance to all elements to be resistance cap, and then we're taking all the max life nodes here. We're only putting just enough here to get the 10% damage multiplier. We do not care about the shadow damage over time because we're simply doing damage by our golem. We're taking the left route here to get some damage bonus. We're not taking any armor nodes here to save points because we are already armor capped. Second board, we are coming into Cult Leader because we have a very valuable legendary node here, as it gives us minions deal increased damage, the multiplier, as we have more attack speed. And we are putting Corporeal here to get some more damage bonuses to our magic nodes, and a damage reduction to our minions. Here you can see it buffs our magic nodes around here, and it gives us a 10% increased physical damage, which will directly buff our golem damage. We're following the short path here and taking the Cult Leader buff here, and we'll talk about the attack caps here in a second. But as we increase our attack caps, and there are breakpoints here. So like, let's say you have 20% attack speed. Until you get to the 40% attack speed, you do not get the first bonus. So 20% attack speed, you are going to get 30% damage multiplier. 35% attack speed, you will still get 30% damage multiplier. But if you hit 40% attack speed, you will get 60% damage multiplier. Second board, I'm going to be running a bone graft here just because it has a very important rare node with maximum life that also gives 12% maximum life, more than any other board you can get. This is something I'm often used to doing in every PvP board that I use. I will specifically go into bone graft board just to get this maximum life because it's a really important value. And just me with the PvP background making PvP Paragon boards, maximum life is very important. And another important thing is the going in and out of boards as quickly as possible. So bone graft is very important here. We come here, we get our resistances here, we get our quick glyph position here that amplify, which also buffs our resistances. That helps us reach our cap more effectively, and then we get our really huge maximum life bonus here, and then we can get out of this bone graft board. Another board is Scent of Death, very important board just because it has a very important legendary node that gives us a damage reduction. This one is another board that I like to use a lot in PvP or PvE builds. It has a maximum life here, very close to the legendary node. So if we just come in here quickly, get the legendary nodes, gets the maximum life very efficiently. And then this one has one of the highest willpowers, which is perfect to put our golem, which I didn't max out my golem damage here just because I needed points on other places. But it is really valuable here. We get put our golem glyph here and effectively, efficiently fill it out as much as we can and get to the next board, which is Hulking Monstrosity. We have a really important legendary node we want to take here as well, and I found the board to be really quickly. You can go in, take enough intelligence and get out of it effectively. So I put the Dead Razor here to activate that glyph, and which also gives us a little bit more golem damage here, and then we were able to efficiently get out of this board by taking the legendary and placing our glyph as well. And the second board, the same idea. We are going with 7 glyph on this build. So we are going into Bloodbath, quickly come in on the left side, take the critical strike essence just enough to get the damage multiplier and get out of this board as well. And then on the left, we are taking Flesh Eater here, very important legendary node, is a huge multiplier. Also, we are going to be consuming corpses by raising skeletons, so this is going to be active most of the time. And then we are coming and putting here Grave Creeper to get some more resistances to be able to cap our resistances without putting much investment from our gear. So this is the Paragon board. I will continue to obviously work on the Paragon board. This was my first take, and maybe there are a few more rooms to tweak and make this more improved. Maybe there's some more damage while fortified nodes here that I might want to take if it's worth it. But in the time being, quite happy with how this Paragon board turned out. Alright, this was the build guide. I hope it was helpful. And disclaimer, don't worry guys, PvP is not going anywhere. I'm actually leveling 2 Necromancer. PvP Shadow Wave build is also coming. Just wanted to take care of this PvE build first because we are going to be doing a lot of farming. And actually Pit is quite fun to push, and if I have a PvE ready tune that I can push really high tiers, it's going to help me farm my gear for PvP more efficiently and min-max my gear more efficiently. But with that being said, I really wanted to also provide you guys my version of Shadow Wave build. There's a lot of great build guides out there, and I hope this is helpful. I hope this gives you an idea to build maybe your own. And I'm still looking to learn. Obviously, I may not be as experienced as some of the other people who pushes PvE content for a while, but I think I have a good base, that I have a good understanding of the class, just because especially Paragon and gear just from PvP. So we'll continue to see how hard I can push the PvE side of things as well. But until then, Lord Sora here. Please comment below, let me know if you have any feedback, if you have any suggestions for the build. This is a work in progress. I think every build targeting the pit pushing is going to be a work in progress, because as we learn, we are going to be tweaking and improving things. But with that being said, I will see you guys on the next video. Cheers.